The dreams. They're back.
I sat with my head in my hands, not daring to meet the eyes of the agent across from me.
Can I please get more of the meds?
I tried to hide the desperation in my voice for fear of being accused an addict. I suppose the reality is that I was an addict, but the drug I longed for was peace.
You know we can't do that, Jeffrey. At least not yet.
The words slid out of Agent White's mouth like a song.
Now look at me and let's get this started. You're so close to being finished. So we do this, and I won't ever have to see that place again? Correct, Jeffrey. This is to be our last meeting, and then the Foundation will permanently provide you with medication. The dreams, or memories rather, will cease to disturb you. Shall we proceed?
She walked over to a bland hospital bed that was draped in white paper.
Should I just lie down?
I asked. Agent White patted the bed.
Please, we will operate like normal. I assure you, this session is no different than any other we have had. The only caveat being that it may go for a greater length of time.
I stood and walked over to the bed. Agent White handed me what she called the scanner as I awkwardly climbed aboard the beige vessel that would transport me back to my own personal hell. The large parchment paper crackled under my weight and startled me. I noticed the trash can in the corner of the room was full of body-sized pieces of the stuff. The ghosts of the other patients come and gone. Each tear of examining room paper represented another person who had been to the park. At least, I wasn't alone. The scanner felt heavy in my hands. When I first saw it, I had assumed it was just a fancy set of headphones. Little did I know what the small machine was capable of. I suppose most of the public wasn't privy to the capabilities of the Foundation, though. In my first session, Agent White explained that the process used to be more cumbersome. Wires and special monitors were needed, but with the recent advancements in technology, this little headset could record memories and play them back. I leaned back onto the bed and put the scanner on. I was met with a deafening silence before Agent White's voice faded into my mind as if she was tuning an old radio. I wasn't hearing her voice so much as it was directly manifesting itself inside my head. I turned to look at her where she was now sitting at a computer terminal.
Testing. Jeffrey, is communication clear? Please give the signal if we can proceed.
I moved my glance to the ceiling and gave a thumbs up.
Confirmation of Subject 473 has been given. We will now proceed with the memory dive. The date is September 27th, 2023.
I closed my eyes to brace myself for what was coming next.
The dive will commence in 3, 2, 1.
Agent White's voice faded out, and the song I tried to forget for so many years faded in.
Come all you children, come 2 by 2. The old Craggle tree has a present for you. Just follow the music and follow the sounds. Craggle Tree Park won't let you down.
I was suddenly aware of a mass of children around me as I opened my eyes back up. The children mulled about and played while we all marched forward. Music danced all around us as if it were the wind making the leaves in the trees blow. It was an old-timey sound, the kind you might hear at a carnival. I felt a tug on my arm and a stranger smiled at me.
Come on, Jeff. Don't you want to meet the Craggle Tree?
The boy continued to tug on my arm.
Yeah, but I'm kind of scared.
I answered in the voice I owned as a child.
Don't be scared. You have to smile.
He grabbed my shoulders and pulled me in close. The boy couldn't have been more than 12, but he was a lot older than I was.
Do you understand?
He spoke through clenched teeth, still wearing a grin. Even as a kid, I could recognize the fear that danced across his eyes.
You'll smile, right? Promise me. I promise.
I answered as I rubbed my eyes.
Okay, good,
he said as he hugged me tight.
Let's get going. Craggle Tree Park is the best place on Earth.
The two of us held hands as we continued on the path. I felt the fear in my chest begin to subside as the aroma of cotton candy and popcorn began to carry us both forward. The crowd of children seemed to become larger as we went further in. I didn't recognize any of them, but they all traveled in pairs too. The parade slowed to a crawl, and I heard several of the children ahead of us begin to laugh out loud and clap. I strained to see what was going on. Commotion grew louder. I could hear the excited gasps of the children in front of me. I felt an urge that I couldn't resist to be a part of. I squeezed my companion's hand and pushed our way to the front. In the middle of what seemed to be a crossroads, there stood a tree with a friendly smile. The tree was making balloon animals and passing them out to the patrons of the park. It reminded me of something I had seen in cartoons, like an animation brought to life. The children all around the tree laughed and cheered with each twist of the balloon. I was terrified. I began to breathe uncontrollably as the world started to spin around me like a carousel gone rogue. I started to scream, but my companion's hand shot over my mouth and he pulled me back into the crowd. His eyes darted back and forth as he looked around us. Some of the other kids hurried to block us from the view of the tree.
What's going on over there, children?
I didn't have to see it to know it was the tree speaking.
Come on out here. Let me see your smiling faces.
You made a promise, Jeff, remember? You have to smile, no matter what happens, okay?
I sniffled and then nodded. He stretched his grin even wider.
Like this, see?
I forced a smile across my face.
Like this?
I asked, holding back tears.
Exactly. Now let's go get you one of those fancy balloons.
He patted me on the back, and we stepped out of the crowd. When the tree saw me, it lifted its branches as if it were surprised.
We have a newcomer to Craggle Tree Park. How exciting. Come here, child, come here.
The tree beckoned me over. The stranger leaned down and whispered in my ear as we approached.
Do not stop smiling,
he said. It wasn't a request, but a command.
And what is your name?
The tree reached out and caressed my face with leaves that felt like sandpaper.
Jeff,
I answered, trying not to meet its eyes.
Jeff, what a handsome name for a handsome boy.
The tree produced a balloon.
And what is your favorite animal, Jeff?
I like lions.
Lions, the king of the jungle. Would you like a balloon animal, Jeff?
I looked to my companion, and his expression told me the answer was yes.
Yes, please, I would.
And well-mannered, too. You children could learn something from Jeff here.
The tree suddenly shoved the end of the balloon into my mouth.
Now let's see what kind of lungs you got there, kid. Blow, blow, blow.
I stood there for a moment, not knowing what to do. I wanted to run away and find the arms of my mother. The memories of my teachers in school assemblies telling me about strangers and the awful things they could do to me flooded my mind. My companion looked down at me and rubbed my back.
It's okay, Jeff. Don't you want an animal balloon?
I saw a sadness in his eyes that spilled over with regret and loss. The stranger's gaze was an apology, but also a plea to just get it over with. I felt violated, but I took a deep breath through my nose and then blew into the balloon.
Yes, yes, again!
All the tree's leaves rustled as if a great wind had just swept across the park. I continued until the balloon was full and ready to be molded into an animal. The tree snatched the completed balloon and in a flurry of twists and turns, transformed it into a lion. I took the rubber beast and felt shame rise within me.
The old Craggle tree is going to love you,
the tree told me. I saw an evil in its smile for the briefest of moments, and I shuddered.
Thank the balloon tree. We still have more of the park to explore, Jeff. Thank you, Mr. Balloon Tree. We're gonna get going now.
Oh, you're most welcome. You two are free to proceed. Now, who's next?
The children began to clamor around the tree once more. I continued to walk with the stranger, not daring to look back for fear I might be offered another balloon animal. The whimsical music followed us as we went, and we soon came upon a path lined on both sides with large sunflowers. Like the tree, they had faces that seemed as if they were put there by an animator. The flowers stared at us with unblinking eyes and a smile that seemed locked in position. My stomach began to turn over as I felt their gaze on me. I heard a loud giggle, and then a shape began to rise from the field of flowers. a great rustling of petals and stems produced a feminine flower 5 times the size of all the others. On her head was a crown.
Welcome to the Sunflower Kingdom, children. I am Queen Beatrice.
She giggled again.
On your way to see the old Craggle tree? Oh, yes,
Answered my companion with a bow.
we are so excited. This is the best day of our lives. Oh, splendid and marvelous. Might I say, it is sparvelous.
All of the flowers let out a deep belly laugh. The stranger at my side did too, and even clutched at his stomach as if the joke had given him cramps. I saw panic in his eyes that told me I should do the same, but I was too late. Queen Beatrice eyes me suspiciously.
You did not laugh, Jeff. You're in Craggle Tree Park, the happiest place on Earth. You are happy to be here, right?
She asked.
I am Queen Beatrice.
I said while forcing a fit of laughter.
Craggle Tree Park is the best. The best. And the best place on Earth.
The queen said between giggles.
You could say even it's the birth.
The flowers all around doubled over in laughter, and we did the same.
Queen Beatrice, you're too funny.
My companion said as he grabbed at his sides, as if they were splitting open.
How do you come up with these jokes? Well, I'm just a talented comedian. You might even call me a comedian.
I followed the stranger's lead and threw myself to the ground, pounding on it, in between breaths of forced glee. My stomach actually began to ache as we continued with the charade.
Oh, Queen Beatrice, you're too much.
I said as I wiped tears from my eyes, thankful that you can indeed laugh until you cry. The tears were born from a fear of what might happen if I did not laugh or carry this impossible smile.
I love Craggle Tree Park.
I said between howls disguised as joy. All of the flowers became quiet as we heard the approaching footsteps of 2 particularly young girls. The 2 of them walked towards us, unsure of themselves or the environment.
Do you know where Mommy is?
One of them asked. My companion raced to their side.
I'm not sure,
He told them.
but she would be so happy to know you're in Craggle Tree Park. You better keep that smile up. It will make your mommy so proud. 2 children looking for their mommy? You might call them Chommy.
Queen Beatrice and all the other flowers flew into a fit of laughter. I did too, and the stranger begged the 2 girls to laugh.
Did you hear that joke from Queen Beatrice?
He asked between hearty chuckles that fell from his body like someone pleading for their life.
Wasn't it so funny?
He was on his knees now and begged with them as he began to tremble.
It cracks you up, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Tell the Queen how funny it was.
Despite his efforts, the 2 of them stood there and began to sob. I turned to see Queen Beatrice with a smile still stretched across her face, but her eyes held hatred behind them.
It seems these 2 need to visit the tickling fields.
She giggled. Vines burst out from the bouquet of cronies that surrounded us and wound their way around the girls. The smiles worn by all of the flowers turned mischievous as the girls were slowly drugged towards the fields. Each of the vines found a spot on the kids and began to tickle them relentlessly. The 2 girls, despite the terror on their face, couldn't help but laugh as they squirmed to try and get away. Both called out to their mom until the flowers swallowed them whole. The entirety of the fields began to chant.
Tickle you one, tickle you twice. You didn't laugh, so pay the price. Tickle you day, tickle you night. In the fields, we'll set you right. Tickle you weeks, tickle you days. Queen Beatrice, you must always praise. Tickle you months, tickle you years. You asked to stop, but we only cheer.
Despite the guilt I felt, I again followed the stranger's lead as he pointed at the 2 victims of the park and laughed.
Can you believe those 2?
He asked as tears poured freely down his face.
Queen Beatrice is the funniest in all of Craggle Tree Park. Look at the way they're wriggling around. Yeah, you're the best, Queen Beatrice.
I said.
Thank you for telling us those jokes.
The queen only waved at us in response as her towering form followed the screams of laughter deeper into the field. Once all the flowers were gone, my companion led us deeper into the park. Sometime later, the 2 of us found ourselves outside the cotton candy creamery. I watched as children gorged themselves on candy-flavored milk until their small stomachs couldn't contain the excess. Dancing lollipops surrounded the children and pranced around them in a circle, encouraging the gluttony. The select few who held in the sugary slop were allowed to proceed. Those that could not were dragged deeper into the creamery, leaving a trail of bile and rainbow-colored filth in their wake. I looked at the stranger. He saw the confusion in my eyes and answered my question before I had time to ask it.
Queen Beatrice already gave us a pass.
He whispered through the side of his forever smile.
Through the creamery or through Sunflower Kingdom. All the kids have to decide, but Queen Beatrice is nicer than the lollipops.
I nodded in understanding and turned my gaze away from the creamery. While the two of us trudged on, my thoughts began to drift as if they were a ship carried by the sea of children around us. I tried to remember how I had gotten here, but couldn't. I yearned for the embrace of my mother, but in the depths of Craggle Tree Park, I couldn't even recall what her face looked like. A whimper almost escaped my mouth, but the stranger's voice caught my attention.
We're coming up on Craggle Tree Lane,
He told me.
The old Craggle Tree will be at the end. We're almost done. Smile. Just smile no matter what. I can do it.
I said as I tried to convince myself.
And then I'll get to go home? Yeah, then we'll go home.
We turned a corner, and ahead of us I saw a great winding lane. On both sides of the cobblestone road stood rows upon rows of trees. The trees were much like the balloon tree, but didn't seem as aged. All of them bounced in unison, adding to their animated look. I fortified the smile on my face, but it was nothing compared to the grins that happily sang all around us.
Come, all you children, come 2 by 2. The old Craggle Tree has a present for you. Just follow the music and follow the sounds. Craggle Tree Park won't let you down. The old Craggle Tree stands tall and grand, with ticklish branches reaching out like hands, whispering secrets of ages old, and leaves that shimmer green and gold.
I then heard an ancient voice boom that echoed louder with every step we took down the lane.
Come, little ones, dance and play under my shade every day, for nothing brings me greater delight than seeing young faces beaming bright. But heed this warning should you frown in Craggle Wood, where happiness abounds. The park might take you along for a ride on the carousel where you can't hide.
The power behind each verse made my whole body tremble. It was as if the old Craggle Tree's voice was reaching the core of my being. I could see the hulking form of the creature swaying back and forth in the distance. The music of the park grew more cumbersome with each and every step. The rhymes were a burden on my grin that felt impossible to carry any longer.
The carousel spins round and round until a new home for you we have found. Craggle Tree Park, there's no happier place, gone and forgotten without a trace.
I continued to shake uncontrollably as we approached the old Craggle Tree. My knees knocked together while I tried to control my breathing. I felt a pressure as we got closer that made staying on my feet a Herculean task of strength. I was wading through my own fear, and each step threatened to drop me off into the abyss of terror from which I knew I could not return. A carousel moved in a slow circle next to the old Craggle Tree. All of the horses, stags, and chariots were empty as they slid up and down on the ride. I noticed that there was a line to get on the carousel, but everyone in it was older kids. Each person in the line wore varying degrees of shock and defeat on their face. Not a smile in sight. Some of them even openly wept. The old Craggle Tree leaned down to greet us. A heavy groan echoed from his trunk as he did. I wondered how we couldn't see him from the rest of the park. He towered over everything here, including the other trees in Craggle Tree Lane.
Hello, children.
His voice was ancient and raspy. I could see small bugs crawling in and out of the grin carved upon his face.
Did you have fun in Craggle Tree Park today?
The stranger ran to the base of his trunk and wrapped the tree in a tight embrace.
We had so much fun. Thank you for letting us into the park today,
my companion said. The old tree lifted a heavy branch and patted him on the back with precision and care. One wrong move, and my guide would have been nothing but a red stain on the cobblestone.
And what about you, Jeff?
The Craggle tree's breath was hot against my cheek. The front of my shorts darkened as I was no longer able to hold my fear in. A small puddle formed beneath me, and I began to cry. I wanted this all to be a dream, a nightmare that had gone off the rails that I might remember for the rest of my life. But the dampness of the Craggle tree's words made it real, and my little mind just couldn't take it anymore. I was broken. The stranger heard my whimpers and was immediately back at my side.
Oh no, it looks like Jeff didn't have a good time.
The tree said as he furrowed his brow.
You'll have to take a ride on the carousel.
But he had so much fun, didn't you, Jeff?
The stranger pleaded with me as he still wore a smile on his face.
Jeff, please tell the old Craggle tree how much fun you had. I didn't have fun.
I screamed as several children gasped.
I don't want to be here, and I want to go home.
I had written a check for all the bravery I had faked, and now it was coming due. The facade busted like the stomachs of the children at the Cotton Candy Creamery. I spewed my terror all over everyone within earshot.
The carousel it is.
The old Craggle tree commanded. I was suddenly being ushered away towards the carousel by one of the flowers I recognized from the Sunflower Kingdom. The grip of its vine was powerful, and though I struggled, I was no match for it.
Wait,
My companion yelled.
please, old Craggle tree, let me go instead.
I turned to see the stranger, pulling his grin wider than I had seen it all day.
I love Craggle Tree Park. Please let me ride the carousel. It's always been my dream.
The old Craggle tree shifted a branch to its chin, as if it were deep in thought. It remained that way for some time, shifting its position every now and then. The entire park was silent as it waited for the tree's decision. The old Craggle tree suddenly lifted its branch as if it were snapping its fingers.
A grand idea.
He said.
I will allow it.
The flower released me, and I ran to the stranger who had collapsed to his knees as relief had washed over him.
Thank you so much.
My companion waved to the old Craggle tree before taking me in a tight embrace.
I'm sorry we didn't both make it out, Jeff.
He told me through exhausted breaths.
I tried so hard.
I hugged the stranger back, uncertain of the reason he had made such a sacrifice. His presence was the only comfort in this awful park, and I clung to him because of it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. It's my fault.
I apologized to him.
Can we go home after the carousel ride is over? I'll wait on you. You can go home now.
He told me as he squeezed me tighter.
I love you so much. Take care of everyone for me. Huh?
I was even more confused as the person who had kept me safe in the park stood and began to walk towards the carousel. The line began to move as those previously waiting started to board the animals.
Just go. I hope you have a long, happy life, Jeff. I really do.
My companion said as he reached the ride.
Try not to think about your time here too much.
With that, the stranger climbed atop a gray horse and the gate closed behind him. The carousel began to spin. Faster and faster it went until all the riders were a blur of colors. The other children in the old Craggle tree began to cheer. Not knowing what else to do, I ran. I ran down the cobblestone road and through Craggle Tree Lane. I pumped my arms as I went past the creamery, where children still gulped buckets of sugar. My lungs started to burn as I got to the Sunflower Kingdom, but I didn't slow down. Queen Beatrice blew me a kiss with a wink, but I put my head down and barreled forward. I wanted to be out of the park more than I had wanted anything in life. I pushed through the children and didn't say a word to any of them. I didn't know what was going to happen to the stranger, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to know. The only thing truly on my mind was my exit. I got to the balloon tree and saw the dirt path that I walked down that started this whole journey. Every breath I took was fire in my lungs, but I was so close. Just before I stepped onto the path, something caught my eye. There on the path was a new tree, a tree I couldn't help but stop to look at. I couldn't place it, but it seemed familiar. The tree turned to look at me and I screamed. The stranger's face was set deep into the trunk, drawn there it seemed, but his face was all the same. Above the eternal smile were eyes dilated with horror that begged to escape.
Welcome to Craggle Tree Park,
He said.
the happiest place on Earth.
I collapsed and cried out until all I saw was a white light. Agent White's voice faded in.
Memory complete. I'm removing the scanner now. Can you hear me, Jeff?
I felt a light tap on my cheek.
Please respond, Jeff.
Give me a minute.
I curled up onto the bed and sobbed.
I'm not doing that again. I won't.
You won't have to.
She said as she tossed me a bottle of pills.
Take one every night before bed. For what it's worth, you did good today.
Uh-huh.
I stood and put the bottle into my pocket.
I'm out of here. You people are sick.
Agent White watched as Jeff exited the room and couldn't help but feel sorry for the shell of a man. She went back to her computer and picked up a voice recorder.
473 is done.
She told the device.
The memory blockers worked. It is my belief that the trauma of knowing his older brother sacrificed himself so that he could leave the park would have killed 473. We saw it happen with earlier test subjects. 473 still believes he was an only child, and we were able to recover his full trip through the park. We still don't know what the old Craggle tree wants, but I'm moving on to 474 now. Hopefully we can learn something from all these memories.
SCP-2571 is a recurring childhood memory of a non-existent theme park, Cragglewood Park. It is estimated that 0.05% of the world's population is affected by SCP-2571. However, recent evidence suggests this number may be growing. The primary vector for SCP-2571 spread is not yet known. Notably, it appears to be most common among adults raised as an only child. Investigations regarding the precise nature of both SCP-2571 and Cragglewood Park are ongoing. Hey guys, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast for more SCP stories like this one. You can also check out some more episodes from the SCP Experience podcast here. I'll see you in the next one.